So, you've been holding out on me. You've got something that we're supposed to talk about now that the microphones are on. And I need to warn you that I'm sitting in some sort of hurricane in Branson, Missouri. So if you get haunting, spooky mansion Halloween wind sounds, that's what that's about.
Okay. Sounds all sabbatical-y.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Okay, here's the deal. I've got this topic. I've been wanting to talk about it for months, actually. I've made a note a long time ago. But I saw something in the news that brought it back up to the forefront of my mind. And before we start, I kind of need to know your position on a particular topic. It's a political issue.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go political. So,
all right.
What do you think about the death penalty?
I'm against it.
You're against the death penalty?
Does that surprise
you? In what cases? I mean, like, when is it okay to, I mean, like all cases?
Never. No death penalty. Ever.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't want to think about horrible things, but if the most horrible thing possible could happen to whatever, people you love, still no death penalty.
I would want us to decide that as a society, because if you ask me to answer that question after something horrible happened to people I love, I'm going to want blood to be shed. And so if we decide that as a society while we're all of sober mind, then our passions don't overtake us and we don't go and accidentally shed blood we shouldn't shed. No, I don't like the taking of life across the board. I'm against it.
Okay. I can respect that.
Where do you land on it?
My views are changing. You know, when I was younger, I was all for it. But I'm less for it nowadays. I mean, I also don't look at life in general the same anymore. Like hitting a squirrel or something when I was driving used to not upset me, but I almost hit a rabbit tonight. And I closed my eyes.
Oh my. You still would have heard the water balloon like popping sound though.
I know.
I mean, the texture. There's no amount of eye closing that fixes that.
I know. I was just like, I don't want to hit this rabbit, but he's running out like an idiot. Anyway, just life is more precious to me. I'll say it that way. So
why? What happened?
I don't know. I had children now. I just look at the world differently. But the death penalty is a thing, right?
Right.
And so I know you're really big into different states being able to decide what they want. So what do you think about states that are for the death penalty and have the death penalty and all the people of sober mind decided it and they're cool with it? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a bad idea for governments to kill people. 270 million people got murdered by their own government last century. That's like 270 million too many. And I know we're talking about criminals, but it's always extreme cases that we use to justify bloodshed, right? It's always for the greater good. It's always because we can't realize this notion of equality or virtue or justice or punishment without shedding a little blood. And so all the sane people have to get together and affirm each other's desire to see somebody killed. Only the right people, don't get me wrong. We don't want to kill good people, just bad people. But who decides? That's my problem with it. Once you open that Pandora's box and you start being okay with killing people like this, well, then maybe you'd be okay with killing people like this over here. And you can scream slippery slope all you want, but that's a slippery slope that humanity has slid down repeatedly through the centuries. So I think it's far better to just say life is irreplaceable. If you deprive someone of it and you're wrong, it's one thing you can't give back. So I would rather pony up some money and pay for someone who maybe should be dead to continue to be alive so that we don't accidentally have blood on our hands by killing anybody who shouldn't have been killed.
I respect that. I have certain situations where I disagree with you, but let me ask this question. You know, we can explain that. I don't know. Self-defense.
I'm curious. What are they?
Okay, so I think if someone's coming into my house to harm my family, I'm gonna do something about it.
Okay, well, you didn't ask me about castle doctrine or self-defense. You asked me about the death penalty. I think that's different.
Okay, cool.
So I'd be with you in that regard.
Okay.
I would do physical harm to someone who tried to harm my family.
Gotcha. So, when there's no passion, it's not the heat of the moment or anything like that. In general, it's a good idea to not kill people. So you're pro-life in the truest sense of the word.
Across the board, period, on everything.
This episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by HelloFresh. It's a meal subscription system where they send a meal ready to cook to your house, your front door, in a little refrigerated box, and you get to cook it, and it's amazing. For $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, visit HelloFresh.com/NDQ and enter the code NDQ at checkout. Matt, you're on sabbatical. Tell them what you did with your orders.
We just forwarded it all to your place. We and HelloFresh are going to converge on your house in a few days.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's awesome. I cooked a whole meal on Snapchat last night because it's so simple. I could do it myself.
What was it?
It was ribeye steak. It was fantastic. It was super exciting. I videoed everything, and I enjoyed it. It was really fun.
Was the internet impressed?
I hope so. I hope so.
More important question, was Tara impressed?
She was. Her taste buds were impressed, and she didn't have to cook the meal, which was great. So she set everything out on the counter for me before she left. It was super easy. It's just a card that you follow, teaches you how to cook. I really, really do like it. It's a big thing for our family. What about you guys?
I like the fact that everything I need to get it right is in the box and carefully labeled. It does not assume that I understand cooking, and I need that.
Yeah.
But the instructions are so clear and the portions are so right that I haven't ever screwed it up. It's been delicious every time, even with me cooking.
Dads, get this for your family. It's fantastic. You will feel proud of your ability to cook really good tasting stuff. Again, for $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, visit HelloFresh.com/NDQ and enter the promo code NDQ at checkout. Doing that supports No Dumb Questions, and it supports the sponsor, which has been really faithful to us, and we really appreciate their support. Okay, can you imagine a situation in which you would help with an execution?
What a bizarre question.
I know.
All right. So you're asking me, is there any conceivable situation where I would help put someone to death in an orderly fashion, not in the moment of self-defense or in the heat of passion making a mistake in my brain, but I mean calculated days, weeks, months to think about it. We're doing this thing and I'm going to participate. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, maybe even a step further. Like, hey, Matt, this is Sheriff what's his name over here in Sumter County. We're gonna kill a guy in 3 weeks, and it'd be awesome if you'd come over and lend us a hand.
That's the weirdest phone call I can possibly conceive of. You're so casual about it, Sheriff. What's your name?
Yeah,
you do this a lot. You invite clergy from time to time.
Okay, so I'm gonna walk this little path with you, and
All right.
and I'm gonna walk you to a place where I think I can help you understand that this isn't as crazy as it sounds. It's crazy.
You have my attention. I'm hooked.
Okay, so the state of Alabama tried to kill someone recently. It was a death row inmate. The gentleman's name was Doyle Lee Hamm, 2 M's. On February 22nd, there was a failed execution.
Oh.
Yeah. So they tried to put Mr. Hamm to death via lethal injection. And
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if you know much about the death penalty, but in Alabama, they used to use the electric chair. They did the same in several other states. I'm not proud of this, this particular fact, but they had this chair, this yellow chair, if I recall correctly, that was portable. and they would take it around, and wherever the death penalty needed to be enforced, that's how they would do it, which is crazy. You've seen the Green Mile, right?
Oh, yeah, that's where my brain's been going for the last 2 or 3 minutes here.
Gotcha. So anyway, long story short, they switched to lethal injection a while back, and every time I think about lethal injection, I think about, for some reason, I think about Reese Roper. Because
What?
I know, from Five Iron Frenzy.
Five Iron Frenzy, Reese Roper? Okay, I'm
because
not making the connection.
Because he tells this story about his little wiener dog that got old, and they had to put her down with sodium pentothal, I think is the drug that they use or whatever.
I've never been in the room for that.
Yeah, it's bad. I've had that
squishy in the heart. I can't do that.
Yeah, I had a situation where I had to be there when one of my dogs was put down. It was a horrible thing. But
I think I could handle a bullet better than that. I don't know why. For some reason, quick, decisive. I don't know. I don't really want to kill animals, so
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, a long time ago, back in the 80s, this gentleman murdered someone in Coleman County, which is a place I used to live for a short period of time in 1987.
That's a jerk thing to do.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't use the word gentleman. This convicted murderer killed someone at a hotel and stole $400. I think was the number.
Seriously.
Yeah, isn't that sad? So anyway, he was convicted by a jury of his peers and condemned to die. So fast forward from 1987 to 2018. That in itself is strange. It's like, come on.
Yeah, aren't you constitutionally guaranteed a speedy trial? Well, maybe he had a speedy trial.
Yeah, I just think it's strange. Like, the death penalty happens 30 years later. I think that's a weird thing. But anyway, long story short.
Maybe it's good. Okay, long story short.
Maybe it's good. So they went to perform the execution, and his attorney said, here's the deal. Mr. Hamm has very difficult veins, and his veins will not sustain the needle, or medically, he's unable to accept the drugs which will kill him. Like, his body is unable to handle that. And I thought, well, that's weird. I've never heard of someone who absolutely can't get an IV. The few times that my wife has been in the hospital, her arm cannot, for some reason, you can't find a vein in her arm. And we know that there's one side on this particular arm, there's one vein, that's the one that we tell the phlebotomist or the nurse to go for an IV. Well, the lawyer for this gentleman said, hey, he can't do that. Like, his body cannot accept, for some reason, his veins are weaker. I don't know. I don't understand. And so the judge said, no problem. We will just order that the needle be injected below the waist into large veins. And they tried to execute the man, and the exam showed after the fact that there were 11 puncture marks where they had tried to find a vein for this man. Did not work.
Wow.
So it is a failed execution. So what are your thoughts there? The argument at this point is, well, this is cruel and unusual punishment to put him through this again. What do you do if you're the judge?
Well, I would argue that it was cruel and unusual punishment the first time around.
Okay.
And I would argue that no matter how sure you are, it's never sure enough because you're taking something that can't be given back.
Okay.
But I also, and I'm rusty on this, I feel like there are protections against receiving the death penalty twice constitutionally. And I think that hails all the way from like old school Roman law or something. You ever seen a Western where the sheriff comes out and he's like, Mr. Robbie Roberton, you are sentenced to death by hanging. You will be suspended from a rope until you are dead.
Right.
And they always add the part like, until you are dead.
Yeah.
So the sentence isn't just you're going to hang from a rope. The sentence is you will end up in this condition. And I feel like I've heard somewhere that is a part of a larger tradition to ensure that you can't just keep trying to execute people and then consequently maiming them repeatedly. Like, you kind of have to get it right.
You have a Rasputin situation on your hands. So
Yeah, man, that guy was tough to kill.
yeah, you probably know.
Did you know that they have
Tell
one
the story. Tell the story.
particular part of his body in formaldehyde? I think you can still go see it.
Really?
It doesn't matter what part, but you know what part.
Really? His nose? Crazy.
I think that's true. Yeah, didn't that guy get shot and then maybe stabbed or something? He rolled down a hill and then he was frozen in some ice. And even when they found his dead, icy body, he still looked all open-eyed and alive. That Rasputin guy, man, I don't know what's legend and what's fact, but everything you hear is super creepy.
He had a cult following, didn't he?
This is a fun conversation, by the way.
It is. So
Beautiful day.
yeah, it is. So getting back to if the execution fails, so there's a discussion going on in the Alabama subreddit, and they're like, holy cow, this execution didn't work. Well, his lawyer is now arguing that it shouldn't happen twice. And I don't know how people know this, but this guy jumps in and goes, actually, that defense has already been tried before. There's a guy named Willie Francis that was, again, he was guilty of murder. He killed someone, and then he was put to death by the electric chair in Louisiana the second time because it didn't work the first time. So it's crazy. So I wonder if the Green Mile came from that. But anyway, that's the thing. So they don't think this will hold up. So they'll probably try to put this man to death. But the news conference is just really, really strange. Anyway, I'm going somewhere with all of this.
Okay.
So I asked you earlier, could you ever conceive of a situation where you would help with an execution? And I ran across this article a long time ago, back when we started the podcast. I have notes to myself on Slack for what I think would be good topics, and this one came up to my mind today. George Hanna was this guy from the Midwest. I think it's Illinois or Indiana. Oh, here it is. He's a Southern Illinois banker. So this guy was what's known as a volunteer hangman.
Like Dwight Schrute is a volunteer weekend sheriff?
Something like that.
Okay.
Here's what happened. This man, when he was 20-something, he saw a public hanging. This is back when executions were public.
Okay.
It didn't work. It was botched. There's several ways that hanging a person can go wrong. Okay. The neck could break too much. Let's just put it that way. All these different things can happen. Well, he saw this botched hanging, and he surmised that it resulted in suffering on behalf of the departed. And he said, that's awful. I cannot let that ever happen ever again.
Because it choked the guy instead of snapping the neck?
Right. I mean, I don't know if you know.
Didn't they botch Saddam Hussein's execution that way?
I have no doubt that wasn't done right. I mean,
thought he was decapitated in the process of his hanging.
Yeah, it has to do with physics, right?
Okay, let me tell you who else's hanging went terribly. And that's Judas Iscariot. I have spent so much time trying to figure out how you get it that wrong, but mercy, what a mess. I'm sorry, I'm making light of it. Continue.
Yeah, there's actually, in the Bible, there's a conflict, right? Because in one of the Gospels, it talks about Jesus Iscariot hanging, and then in the other one, it talks about him falling headlong into a field, right?
Yeah. They
both
end up in a pretty grisly situation. And it is very interesting to watch people, rather than shrugging at it and saying, oh, that's an apparent conflict from two different perspectives. Often when two different people see or hear a report of the same thing, they catch it from a slightly different angle. It's really more entertaining to watch people who are like, well, like if you hung someone like this and they fell at this angle, really, I've seen smart people invest a considerable amount of time into resolving that one with physics. But seriously, I've digressed us horribly.
So physics. This guy studied the physics of hanging people.
Okay.
And he decided that he was going to make it his life's work to get it right. And so anyone that was ever hung, if he had a part in it, for the most part, it was done right. There was one particular case where it went wrong. But the question is, would you find yourself in a situation where you recognize that society is doing something so crazy, in your estimation, the death penalty, right, that they're doing it wrong? If people are going to do something, at least do it right so that it's humane, right?
It depends on what that thing is. In undergrad, I had a brilliant professor of political science. She was a lawyer. She still is a lawyer in Chicago, and a Christian, like somebody who, and I don't think you have to be a Christian to agree with me on this. Divorce, at best, isn't ideal. It's not something that you go into marriage hoping for. It's always a bummer when it happens. Sometimes it's the only way out of a really ugly situation. But there was this taboo, especially back then when I was in college, on divorce to such a degree that if it happened, a lot of people who were religious, or in this case Christians, wouldn't know what to do about it. They'd fumble it horribly and do way more damage because they didn't get any advice on how to do a divorce, and they'd have awful divorces. And she wrote this book on Christian divorce. It wasn't like, should you do it, should you not? Here's how to work things out and get some spice back with your partner. It was entirely, here are practical tips for religious people who need to get a divorce. And that didn't go over super well with some of her colleagues, but I thought, and that's an eventuality that is honest, that deals with a reality, and that at some point a lot of people are going to benefit from. Nice job, great book, Gwen Sturck. And I feel like helping someone through an ugly eventuality like that is different than helping to execute someone. I think you can acknowledge this divorce is going to happen, and I'm willing to help you make it a good divorce without saying, hey, divorce is a great idea and everyone should do it. I think it's harder to say, since all of you are going insane and you're going to publicly murder a murderer, I will help you do it, because then you're participating in taking life. I'm not saying the dude was a bad dude. I'm not in no position to judge him. I'm just saying I couldn't do it. I think I could show more mercy by taking a stand for not killing people, period, than I could by trying to nicely go along with it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, let's kind of jump into the brain of George Philip Hanna here.
All right.
So it's well documented what he did. He tested with weights. He tested the distance they needed to fall to get to certain velocities so that it could break a neck. He investigated the type of rope. He even got a firm involved to create a special rope so that it would work, and without breaking, things like that. But he never tripped the lever himself, ever. He just went to great lengths to make sure it was done exactly right per physics, given the weight of the person, which meant there had to be a certain length of fall, all these things. He did everything, and he would show up the night before the execution. He'd walk into the person's room, at least this is one article I read. He said, "Hi, my name is George Hanna. I'm here to help you. My goal is to make this painless, so you feel nothing." This is interesting, man. I mean, his wife would sew the hoods, and he would let them pick. Would you like a black hood or a white hood? What would make you feel more comfortable? And they just went to great lengths to just get it perfectly right. And at the end of the event, he would get everything set up, and he would have the law enforcement officer for the county that it was happening at. That was the person that would throw the lever. He would do his thing.
As it should be.
Yes.
He who pronounces the sentence should swing the sword.
Little Game
It's
of
a
Thrones.
good rule. It's a good rule.
Little Game of Thrones.
Ned teaches us all.
Ned Stark. So that's the way he would do it. And in exchange for all of his services, he would never accept money. He would never volunteer to do it. He would just, I guess that's not true. He would never seek out the work. He would only wait until he was asked, and then he would go do it. And in exchange for all of these services, what do you think he asked for? This is a pretty interesting part.
The opportunity to interact with the sentenced?
No, he asked for the weapon that was used in the commission of the crime. Is that the right word?
Huh.
The commission of the crime?
Didn't see that coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
I have no idea. No idea. That's what he wanted. He said, I'll do this, just whatever weapon the crime was committed with, that's what I want. And they would do it. And so from several states around, people would say, oh, well, this guy's sentenced to die by hanging. They would seek out this banker from Southern Illinois, and they would bring him to the site, and he would make sure it was right. He did it 70 times, and then towards the end, he had it worked down to a science where he had this portable gallows kind of thing that he made to make sure that it was right. It was his own equipment. There was one time where it went wrong. The rope broke one time, and the guy fell down and was hurt, and he walked down, and he got the man and took him back up, and he finished the execution. But that's But that's that's an interesting thought. I disagree with this so much, or I don't like this so much that I'm going to absorb this pain so that others might not feel pain.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. It's interesting how even things I wildly disagree with can be humanized. Like, I started out this conversation making some assumptions about this guy and his motives, and I'm looking like a little bit of an idiot over it.
No, you're not.
Because my assumptions were wrong. I tried to hold back on letting that judgment sneak through, but I know it did. And you've humanized him, and I get his motives better, and I respect it. And I just want to, I want to make it clear, man, I don't feel sympathy for somebody who murdered somebody. I know the pain of having somebody I love very much taken from me prematurely. It wasn't a murder, but loss is loss. And I can't imagine if there was somebody I could attach blame to for the loss of my brother, where my brain would go and what kind of vengeance I would have wanted, especially as a young man when all of that happened. But to be clear, I don't feel sympathy for somebody who thinks it's cool to take another person's life. I just don't feel like we make it right by returning the favor. But if you're over a barrel and society is going to do it anyway, and you're utterly powerless to stop society from doing it, I could see how the role that guy played could be a response to it that could in some way be, is redemptive too strong a word?
I don't know. I've thought about that myself. I've thought about, it could, the motive could be several reasons. He could be scared of pain. He could have a deep-seated fear of pain. Some people have suggested that, and this was his attempt to minimize it. It could be he wanted to show mercy.
Did you just send me a picture of this guy?
I did. We'll put this on the Twitter account at NoDumbQs on Twitter. So what you're seeing here is a picture, and you see all the people on the gallows there. You see the convicted there with a sneer on his face. He's about to die. He's tied up around the knees there. You see a rope. You see the rope is in the hand of a man on the far right. So Mr. Hanna is the second person from the right holding the noose. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do.
Very interesting to see the picture, isn't it?
I mean, the first thing that jumped out at me was not what was going on in the gallows. It's all those men, women, and children who gathered to watch a guy have his neck broken.
It's weird. It's really weird.
I think it's weird that we live in a society and in a time where we insulate ourselves from death so much. I know you and I have talked about that before. I think it's okay. The movies that portray violence that I like the most are the ones that lean into it. And they're like, hey, guess what? Violence is a really big deal. It's messy. It wrecks bodies. It turns bodies into things that are unrecognizable. Did you watch the original RoboCop?
No.
Maybe you're not missing out on anything. It is a violent, insane, bloody mess. I wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid, but I found a way to do that anyway with my buddy Adam, who is the person who helped me find all kinds of ways to circumvent rules and expectations as a child. And I was stunned. By the time I was a quarter of the way through the movie, I was like, I will never question my parents again. They know what they're doing. Their judgment is right. And I read Nintendo Power magazines or something like that in my lap through the rest of the movie, trying not to let on that I was tuning it out because it was just too much.
Right.
And the director of that film went out of his way to say, I wanted to make a movie that didn't have bloodless violence, but that had bloody violence. Absurd, over the top. This is what violence does. And then, did you see the new RoboCop that came out 5 years ago? It was pretty mediocre.
I did not. I'm sorry.
No, your RoboCop knowledge is embarrassing. Do you know what city has a sculpture of RoboCop in it?
Chicago?
It's like Chicago, but I think it's Detroit. So I'm just
sorry,
going to give you an F on RoboCop.
I apologize.
But the new RoboCop was more like Avengers violence.
Yeah?
Like, hey, people in black masks, they're bad. We know because of the black mask. Kapow, kapow, kapow. And they fall down. They're like, I'm dead after that.
Or like the old Westerns where you always, like, when you get shot, you have to fall off the building.
Yes. Yeah, you can't just kind of go limp.
You have to.
Yeah. I also like the way 9mm rounds in some of those movies will
make a car
launch
explode?
people backwards. Yeah. Yes, it's amazing. But this bloodless violence thing, I think there are consequences to that as much as there are consequences to seeing all these people gathered to watch an execution. They both kind of skew our value of the preciousness of being alive. And I'm not making some political point here. I know that it's ridiculous that now it's a loaded thing to say I think life is really important and life is precious. And believe me, dude, I know like all 15 chess moves that everybody can make with all the arguments about the issues that conjures. I'm not interested in any of that. I just think there is truly something unique about an organism that has volition, and especially volition and cognition at the level of a person. It's pretty special. And when you do a lot of funerals and you sit with families after a lot of losses and you make those hard trips up to hospitals and you talk with people right after horrible tragedy, part of the unspoken loss is all of the ideas, all of the history, their role in a circle of people, the dreams, the ideas, the knowledge, the education, the wisdom, the failure, all of that is just gone in an instant. And it's part of why death is so tragic. And it's something I take pretty seriously. I'm sorry, I've been a little somber about all of this. I need to screw around more here.
No, not at all. The RoboCop thing did it for me. But
okay, good.
I just wanted to get you into the mind of a guy named George Phil Hanna, and see if you could see something good in what he was doing.
I think I can. I almost said, no, I'll say it. I respect him. Maybe that wouldn't be my play, but he saw a need and he tried to do something to make something better. And whether I see it exactly the same way or not, I can respect it. Would you help with an execution?
Oh, man, this isn't fair. How did I not see that? You were going to ask me that.
You were just stalling, hoping it would go away.
No, I just, yeah, I think I could. Because, I mean, you don't want something like that botched. So that brings me back to this guy in Alabama, right? I mean,
yeah.
Doyle Lee Hamm which is why I'm starting a Kickstarter for a. No,
I wanted to hear you round out the joke, man.
No, I have no way.
I think it would have been fun to push that all the way to the end of the episode.
No, I don't think that's gallows humor, right? I don't think that's really cool.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, man. This is a serious thing, and it's real right now in my state. Apparently they tried to take out this gentleman with the death penalty. It didn't work, and so I don't know what they're going to do. I'm anxiously checking out the news to see what the next steps are.
I don't think they're allowed to kill him any other way.
No.
I don't know. No, I'm shooting from the hip there. I don't know.
No,
I think, though, once a state is committed to a form of death penalty, wouldn't you have to change a law? I don't know.
And
at that point, if you changed a law, could that, this is like the third time this has come up, would that be an ex post facto law? I don't know. That's sticky. It's a mess. When people do horrible things to each other, it puts everyone around them in horrible situations too.
So I've thought about this. If you were the governor of a state that had the death penalty, the citizens of the state had voted on it, and they all agreed that's what they wanted, and you're the governor, and you have the ability to pardon the person, would you do it?
Oh, I wouldn't pardon a convicted murderer. Absolutely not.
If you
want me to say something really that is upsetting to a ton of people?
You would commute a sentence?
I would commute every nonviolent offender's sentence related to drugs immediately. First day in office as a governor. Every single one. If it involved violence in any way, they're serving that sentence. But if they didn't wrong anybody else, they're out, and we'd have to come up with some kind of way to integrate them quickly back into society, but you can't keep them a day longer. You don't have any claim on their life. That said, you're talking about someone who isn't some nonviolent offender. You're talking about someone convicted by a jury of their peers and convicted to death on the grounds of murder. I'm not commuting that sentence. I'm not letting that person off the hook, but I might give them a stay of execution. Well, I would give them a stay of execution. I don't want to be party to killing people.
You said two different things. You said
like 8 different things.
Yeah, you did. You would commute the sentences of people who committed nonviolent crime, right?
Yeah, immediately. Yes.
So theft is cool.
Well, no, that's an aggression. That's an aggression against another person. Theft is not cool.
It's not violent.
Let me phrase that differently then.
Yeah.
That's fair. Because I was thinking in terms of nonviolent drug offenses. But you're right. I did use a larger umbrella. Let me put it this way. Victimless crimes. And society can't be the victim.
Okay. I'll allow it. I don't agree with you, but I'll allow it because we're friends.
It's cool. I know you like having people in jail.
I'm all about it.
That's people's jobs, man. Like you let all those people out of jail, that's a ton of people. You got to go find work somewhere else.
This got weird, man.
No, it's cool. You're more pro-job than me. Aren't politics easy? That's all we got to do to smear each other. So you're saying?
So what you're saying is kill everyone except the people you don't want to kill, right?
You want to let everybody out of jail and have them inject children with crack. Yep. Got it.
That's what I said. Hey, I wanted to take a second to thank two people in particular for helping make this podcast happen. Two really big supporters on Patreon. Andy has been supporting at the awesome level for quite a while now. That's a huge deal, and personally, it's mind-blowing to me. There's another guy that has chosen to remain anonymous, but you fly helicopters and you know who you are, and I enjoy those conversations that we've had together on the telephone. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to everyone who supports on Patreon. Thank you so much. And these people in particular, man, it's we're grateful. Thank you.
Okay, full disclosure, man. I picked a topic that I think is important and a little bit serious and made me a little bit weepy even thinking about discussing it with
so
you.
So you're going to follow up my big death penalty thing with that? We can't do that.
No, we can't do it. I'm going to save it for the next one. I think it's an important topic, and I think you're going to be really into it, but I'm not doing that to you here. So let me let me on the fly shift here.
I'm game.
Ender's Game.
Dude. Yeah. Don't you love it?
No, let me just do it. I was resistant, and you said it was important and it was good. So let's get this over with. You are good looking.
No.
I am not attractive.
No,
you're a good.
I think the
you're
issue
a good
is
book picker.
you had watched.
I'm dumb.
No, I liked Devil in the White City. The reason it was difficult was because you had watched the movie, and everyone.
Wait. Who said anything about Devil in the White City?
What you?
I'm not backpedaling on that. Well, excuse me.
Well, that's the only book you've picked.
Okay. Okay. I did dig in a little bit on Ender's Game, and you're right. I had my reasons.
Yeah, because you watched the movie, and I haven't. And everyone that's watched the movie said it was bad, but, I mean, I just read the book, and I was like, this is incredible.
When did you read the book?
It was probably 2 years ago.
Oh, so it's all fresh. Why did you read the book?
Because people suggested it. I mean, I like listening to audiobooks, no joke. And so I said, hey, I'm done with what I'm reading. What should I read now? And somebody said Ender's Game. I was like, that's weird, doing it. And I did, and I loved it. I also found out
that's where I'm at.
It was on the another reason is it was on the Marine Corps suggested reading list, and I had just read a book called With the Old Breed by Eugene Sledge. After The Pacific came out, I don't know if you know the HBO series The Pacific.
Yes. Oh yes.
So that book was on that, With the Old Breed, and I was like, man, what else is on there? And somebody suggested Ender's Game, and I saw that it was on there. I'm like, done. I'm sold, and I did it. It was great.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was on that list, and I was skeptical, having seen the movie, but I trust you. And wow, do I see it now. Just driving along in the car on sabbatical with the family, listening to this book, which, by the way, we have a 7-year-old. I think that might have pushed a little bit for him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the girls were doing okay. They've been introduced to some new ideas, but I think it's worth it. It's been really good for us, discussion-wise, as a family. But I am thinking about the world differently.
How are we going to do that episode? Are we going to do chapter by chapter like we did for Ready Player One, or?
You know what I think we should do? I think we should meet in Chicago and go to the site of the 1893 World's Fair
and get real sad.
Talk about it there.
And get real sad.
Real depressed and talk about a children's book.
Or we
chapter by chapter. I got good feedback on that from smart people I respect. My librarian friend, Matt O, went out of his way to say, that's a good way to do a book review. And if that guy, who might be the smartest human I've ever met, thinks it was a good idea, it might be a good idea.
Then let's do that. But you're going to be here. You're actually going to be in Alabama.
Yep. Which means we have to figure out how to record in the same room.
Yeah, we do, but that's not important. What is important is...
Oh, thanks for deciding what's not important.
I talked to my buddy, Wes, and he's got you a spot on the church softball team.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
That
wasn't important, and what you said was important.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah? Right field?
No. I told him you like to play short, but the problem is there's another guy that likes to play shortstop. You're probably better than him.
Thank you for saying that.
Well, it's true. I've played baseball with you. So I think you're going to be like, pushed off to third base or something like that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're talking about like church league softball third base. That's where all the hot grounders come. So you might not have teeth at the end of the summer.
You better bring it. Is it a good infield or is it a garbage infield?
It's not grass or anything like that, but it's just Alabama clay.
Okay. But we did spring training in the Tampa Clearwater area when I was playing college ball. And they had that kind of red infield thing. Mm-hmm. And I like the way the ball moved on that. Better than yucky Intermountain West gravel.
You're going to dig it. You're going to like it, and you're going to get to meet some cool guys. So it'll be cool.
Well, buddy, we are probably a couple episodes out from going and watching Ready Player One together. A couple more out from Ender's Game. And it'll be fun because we get to do both of those in person. And then otherwise, maybe next time I can hit you with my super serious topic.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good. I'm looking forward to it.
You're going to have good ideas on this. It'll be fun to pick your brain.
Sweet. Is it deep water?
Yeah, it's pretty deep water.
Okay, cool. I like it when we get into the deep water.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. So here's the deal. I am using my truck, as you know, as my studio again.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned it off so that I wouldn't pick up all that ambient noise. And it is cold in Branson, Missouri at night. And I'm freezing. So I'm going to tap out.
Go get in bed, man.
I'm going to go snuggle. It's going to be wonderful.